Hello everybody, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. From wherever you're watching this, today we're going to be talking about something. I have to be clear. I am simply researching this. I am not somebody who is promoting this. But we're going to talk about the tinfoil hat belief called Project Blue Beam. Is this a psyop? Is it, you can see the word I've got written there, I'm not going to repeat it verbally. Or is it a failed Star Trek movie? What should we know about this? Hello and welcome back to the channel. So, people have been asking me about this a lot, and to be honest with you, I hadn't really investigated it. There was something about it that I wasn't quite sure about, and that's why I haven't talked about it, but I've looked into it, and I found some very interesting things. So Project Blue Beam is it was written in a book by a French-Canadian guy. What was his name? Serge Monast. And he has since passed away. He passed away after bringing this belief to public consciousness and writing a book. And he, some people say he died under mysterious circumstances. It only adds to the mystery of it all. But I'm going to tell you what he believed. Once again, I am not saying this is truth. I'm not saying I believe this. We're going to examine it. But this is what he believed. Just in case any YouTube censors are listening to this. All right. So Serge Monast in the 90s, the early 90s, came up with a 4-step process by which he believed that a one world government would take over the world. And so this is how he believed that it would happen. And it would happen in 4 major steps. The first one is the breakdown of all archaeological knowledge. So according to him, there would be earthquakes that, of course, were manufactured earthquakes at certain precise locations on the planet where supposedly new archaeological discoveries would suddenly emerge out of the ground, and it would explain a completely different history. And he says that the point of this would be to discredit religion. So right off the bat, we know that Serge Monast was religious. So as you know, as a critical thinker, critical thinking is not what a lot of people believe it is. Critical thinking is very simply not having an emotional or psychological agenda, not having a bias, being willing to know the truth, whether you like it or not. You just want to know what the truth is. You just want to know what the facts are. So when you come into anything with an assumption, a preconceived assumption, the critical thinker says that already has contaminated my ability to investigate something. So if Serge Monast was religious, as I believe it should, as you look through this, you'll find out he was a religious person, then he's going to be bringing that emotional attachment. He already believes that religions of various kinds are true, and therefore anything that says opposite is therefore going to be evil. So he's already starting with a prejudice, a personal bias, and from a critical thinking perspective, that already puts him in a position where even if you give him the truth, he's going to come to inaccurate, perhaps outright false conclusions. At best, he will have a mixture of truth and fiction, which will destroy his ability to even know the truth. So that's my first take on this guy. So he believed that first thing that was going to happen by this one world government that's going to try and take over the world, is that they're going to manufacture some earthquakes, and then there will be some obviously manufactured false archaeological information, which would change history to the point where it would destroy belief in religions, period. So that's the first step. Second step of his belief is that a gigantic space laser show will take place. Now that is an interesting, again, we're talking, is this truth or conflation? And this is back in the 90s. So this is not an impossible thing at all. But he believes that holographic lasers would project religious figures in the sky to different areas of the world. So over the United States and Europe, it would be Jesus. Over Israel, I don't know if they have whatever their second coming is. I wouldn't even know what that is. Muhammad, actually, what does Muhammad look like? Buddha, whatever. They're going to project whatever religious icon you want to believe in. It'll be Kalki, coming in on a horse over India, whatever. And so that idea is then people will believe that their God is coming to earth. Now, that seems pretty unbelievable. But let me show you something. It is, feel free to go on anywhere and search for something called 7D holographic images, especially in Dubai. Dubai uses these. So make whatever conclusions you want about that. So let me show you how powerful these holograms are. Now what I'm going to show you is not something that's trying to be hidden. It's not trying to present itself as anything. You can see cars are driving past this hologram. They already know what it is. They don't even pay attention to it. But it'll give you an idea of, could this holographic false image of God coming to earth, is this something that could be done? If these holograms are anything like they appear, the answer would be yes. So that is not CGI. They're just driving right past as though it's nothing. That's a hologram. Those are a bunch of holograms, and if you go and look for them, you'll see that that's nothing compared to the stuff that they can do. They can make you believe that a whale is jumping out of the ocean right next to you. It's got sound. It'll cast shadows, all kinds of other stuff. Now, Dr. Stephen Greer, in his press event on June 12th, he had supposed whistleblowers who saw with their eyes UFOs projected in the sky by holograms that you could feel. You could feel the wind from them. You could hear the sound. You wouldn't have known that it was a hologram. So that number 2 seems pretty interesting. He says there's going to be a gigantic space show with holographic laser projections. And that looks like that could be something somebody could do. Step 3. This again is according to Serge Monast, with his unproven theories that he had way back in the 90s. Step 3 for him will be telepathic two-way communication. And then he, this isn't me talking, this is him. He says, NASA will use low-frequency radio waves to telepathically communicate with humans in an attempt to shape their beliefs to match this new false religion that the powers that be are wanting people to believe. So the theory is that if they can destroy people's belief in religion, show God coming to you in the sky, and then all of those different gods will merge into one new God This is the idea. So people will think God is coming, and then the holograph will change into something else, and then they'll change their belief into the one that this supposed one world fledgling government is going to try and convince you to believe exists. And then step 3 is they're going to NASA is some kind of technology to get into your brain and telepathically communicate to you and make you believe that this new God is talking to you, etc., etc., etc. And then the step 4 is the one that most people talk about, which would be a false alien invasion. And that gets confusing because it's, I'm still trying to figure out, to be honest, I'm still trying to figure out the through line of this because it seems very convoluted and confused. Because I don't think if somebody were to do this, I don't think it would have the effect that it's supposed to have. But step 4, basically, if I read it right, he says that then there's going to be some fake aliens that are going to come, and they are going to do things like possess people with evil satanic spirits, and then people will be so confused and they will be so depressed and they will be at their wits' end that people will be committing suicide. They'll be killing other people. They'll launch nuclear weapons, all of this. So that's, according to him, that's step 4. And it gets much deeper than that. He, interestingly enough, believed also that there was going to be a forced, which would then infect people with some kind of way that they'll be more easily manipulatable through this kind of telepathic communication. That was a very interesting thing that I found about him. But here's what's also very interesting, and I want you to listen. So before I get into the next part of this, let me say, I'm talking hypothetically here. So hypothetically, if I am this hypothetical wannabe governmental system, and I don't have control, and I want to get control over the population, there's all different things that you can do. There's the obvious ones, which we know of, which is that you can create, like the Nazis did, like the communists did, you can create a state-run media where the media gives out false information. And so that same false media will then denounce anybody that even approaches the truth. So if you say anything that's true, the government's trying to deceive you by doing X, Y, and Z, the state-run media would then simply just categorically deny that and say that they would fact check it. They would probably have fact checkers on the payroll that would do you a supposed service and check all of these things and debunk everything. Like the fact checkers did within hours of the Maui fires. There were fact checkers who were denying some of the crazy, outlandish things people were saying. So we got to be grateful we got people out there like that to do that. But in this hypothetical scenario, you've got false media giving false denials of everything. So that's one strategy. There's another strategy which is much more nuanced, and that is you have people spewing these crazy theories that are actually conflated with both truth and fiction. And the way that works is, let's say that you are, let's say I'm going to make up something. Let's say the Nazis are about to invade Poland. And they tell the world, no, we're never going to invade Poland. And they secretly say, yes, we're going to invade Poland. Some whistleblower comes out and says, I overheard Hitler and Goering talking about they were going to invade Poland, and I saw the plans. Now that would be somebody telling a truth, and the Nazis would be telling a lie. So all you have to do is discredit that person. So if that person has also been given false information, so in other words, you take him aside and you say, hey, guess what? We really are going to invade Poland. But we're going to be using headless horsemen. So all you have to do is give him some truth and some falsehood, because then he says, no, actually they are going to invade Poland on this date, and they're going to use headless horsemen. Then all you have to do is then go back to the state-run media and say, do you see how crazy this is? This guy says we're going to use headless horsemen. There's no such thing. Anybody who says anything against us is crazy. So you create confusion and you create cognitive dissonance among people. I am getting the feeling that's what this guy is. I think Serge Monast is was an unwitting dupe, because he says things that now we know, the people now that want to talk about Project Bluebeam, and Project Bluebeam is happening because they want to say, look at the fake alien invasion and all of that other stuff. Well, if we believe that, for instance, Dr. Stephen Greer and his whistleblowers are telling the truth, that's their claim. I'm not saying it's true, but Dr. Stephen Greer is saying there's going to be a false flag operations, saying there's going to be a fake alien invasion. Let's just assume, for argument's sake, that he's speaking the truth. All you have to do then is lump him together with Project Bluebeam, and then you have to say, but that first thing never happened. The first thing where there's going to be these targeted earthquakes that's going to disprove history and religion, that never happened. So this is obviously false. Therefore, everything Dr. Stephen Greer is saying is false. This is a much better strategy, but you need both. You need the state-run media to just deny anything and just give out false information. And then there are people out there who are knowing the truth through whatever means. And then you have to create a nutbag who is conflated some of the most damaging truths with complete total nonsense. And then all you have to do is just disprove the nonsense. And then everybody who believes that is also a tinfoil hat lunatic. I think that's what this guy is. Now, here's another interesting thing. The whole Project Bluebeam idea that there's going to be a fake second coming of Jesus, for example, and then Jesus will morph and turn into some new God, and then this new God, of course, which isn't a God, will be using technology supposedly created by the deep state military to send telepathic messages to you, giving you a complete new religion. Now, the reason why Serge doesn't like this is because he's religious. And so if you're a religious person, like if you're a born-again Christian, you only have one explanation for that. That would be, oh, this is the devil. These people are demon-possessed, and they are doing this, And so now again, we've got the crazy religious aspect to it. So to me, all this does is create confusion. Now, there's a lot of people out there. The feeling I get is that people understandably are coming to realize that this world is not what we have been told that it is. This world is not what religion has told us. The world is not what scientists have done their best to tell us. And Our governments are not what we've been told. People see this, they feel this, they sense this. They may not have all the facts. They may not have access to the facts. So all it takes is for somebody to come along and simply speak some justifying words to their intuitions that are telling them there's something going on. People are trying to lie to us and control us and take our freedoms away. I see it in these ways, but I can't put my finger on it. Oh, Serge Monast says it's going to be a fake God returning and a fake alien invasion, and then all you have to do is find enough evidence to back those two up, which there's plenty of evidence. Again, this is, irrefutable evidence. Look at that. I mean, if they can do that, they could fake a God returning. They could fake, UFOs landing. They could do all that. You have those flying overhead, and then you have somebody plant explosives, and then you just hit the button, and explosion, and fake, bzz, and there you go. Right there, you got a fake alien invasion that everybody believes. So all you have to do is just find the stuff that you believe in, and then now everybody wants to put the word Project Bluebeam. But I haven't seen anything, and I haven't thoroughly researched it. I haven't seen anything that tells me that this is nothing more than his intuition. Or, as I said, I think he might very well be he's dead, of course, which would only confirm it for me. He's an unwitting patsy. He's an unwitting agent of disinformation. Conflated truth with outright falsehood, wrapped up in his religious agenda, which makes him not a critical thinker, and boom. Now, if this were true in a hypothetical sense, I'm not saying it is, but in a hypothetical sense, if there was truth to any of these things, all we would have to do is just put out enough conflated, false, true information, and then the mainstream media could simply denounce it as tinfoil hat. Done. Now you have confused people who are filled with cognitive dissonance, and they feel guilty and stupid for even wanting to listen to their instincts that are telling them this. Now, what gets more interesting again is that this was in the 90s. So Serge Monast was talking about this in the 90s, I believe it was. But in 1975, and I didn't get a screenshot of it, but in 1975, Gene Roddenberry wrote a movie script called The God Thing. And he has this almost identical story, down to an AI, alien computer AI that is actually the devil that came from an evil dimension. And what this evil devil has done from their dimension is that they go around to different worlds and they use telepathy to get into people's heads and tell them that God is returning. And then they do things like with, holographic images to let them believe whatever God. And when this God reveals himself, he says, oh, that's right, I'm Jesus, I'm Buddha, I'm Muhammad, I'm all of those. And those were just masks, and now you see the real God. This is exactly what Serge Monast is talking about. Talking about somebody who wants to control the world, an evil person, because Serge Monast believes that it will be would be the Antichrist. So he's a Christian. He believes the Antichrist is coming, and the Antichrist is going to bring this, as it so happens, exact movie that Gene Roddenberry wrote in 1975, where some evil being that came from a lower dimension, and it is coming to deceive people and is actually very evil and predatory and uses fake telepathic messages and uses fake projections of all of their religious beings, and etc., etc. So now we're left with, what do we do with this? I'm saying this to somebody because what was interesting to me about this, people talked about it, and people, only gave me some information. People in comments only gave me some information, saying that Project Bluebeam says that there's going to be a fake return of Jesus followed by a fake alien invasion. And I found that interesting. The reason I found that interesting is because I didn't know about any of this stuff, as you know. If you talked to me a year and a half, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have even known any of this stuff existed. I didn't even know ETs existed. But I was given a dream by ETs. And in that dream, which then started me on the path of coming to find out about the solar flash, in the dream, there was this obviously fake image of Jesus that appears out of the clouds, and it's a Jesus on a crucifix, but it's only half of his body, and he's like coming out of the crucifix, and he's floating out. And in the dream, I went, the Christians were right, because I've walked away from Christianity. I don't believe in. Jesus never existed. That's the fact. That's a historical fact. There never was a man named Jesus of Nazareth, and I've proven that numerous times. Not just me. There's plenty of people out there that's proven that. So in the dream, I was very disappointed. I was like, the whole Jesus thing. That's disappointing. And then the Jesus on the cross, obviously a fake cross. It looked like it was made out of pewter. It was just super fake and looked like costume jewelry. But it's this enormous Jesus as he's on the cross and he's coming. And all of a sudden that Jesus opens his eyes and he looks up above him and he has this really frightened look on his face. And then the dream ended. And the feeling I had was that this was going to precede a worldwide awakening event. So that sounds a lot like Project Bluebeam. I took it to mean, at the time, the way I took it to mean was that that there was going to be an event that everybody was going to see in the sky, and they would interpret it based on their religious agenda. And then it would become clear to them very quickly that it was something far beyond that. That sounds a lot like this Project Bluebeam. So, and to be honest, I don't even know if my interpretation of that dream was accurate. And that's just assuming that dream, it absolutely felt like it was a shamanic dream. It wasn't a normal dream. It was one of those like handful of dreams you have in your life where you know that you weren't in this dimension, you were somewhere else, and you were seeing something from, you were seeing heaven or something like that. It's like an out-of-body experience. So, that was my interpretation of it, but maybe there's some truth to this Project Bluebeam, some of it. But the question is whether or not it's my interpretation or Serge's interpretation. Since Serge has an agenda to believe in the biblical Jesus, if something were to happen where there would be, the universe would express itself in a way where people would think Jesus was coming, and then the universe would say, so we just want to let you know that whole Jesus thing wasn't accurate, but your instincts are accurate, that, true spirit is coming, the 5D is here, heaven on earth, that's true, but the Jesus thing wasn't accurate, so you guys can let that part go. Now, if you're a born-again Christian, you're not going to like that. Now, let's go deeper into another hypothetical scenario. This is hypothetical. I'm not saying this is true. This is hypothetical for all the censors out there. let's say, hypothetically speaking, that the hypothetical deep state knows this is coming because of their access to their technology, which allows them to look at differing timelines and try and manipulate the timeline in their favor. If they know that this ascension event includes a worldwide experience where people will believe that the God of their choice is coming, but that will then fade away and turn into something else, which would absolutely destroy banks, governments, military, get rid of the old world order. If they knew that was coming, and if they knew that if people were to ascend their belief and understanding of the universe and what God is, and if God were to expand beyond the limitations that the deep state wants and has been using since the beginning of the monotheist religion, then it would be in their best interest to try and frighten you out of it before it ever happens. So I have my dream, which came to me, which led me to believe that there's going to be a worldwide event, ascension event. There will be something in the sky that people will see. They will equate it with the God of their choosing, and then they will very almost instantaneously realize, oh, that's just a religion. This is even beyond that. And not only that, there's no need for government, there's no need for money, there's no need for any of it. That would be a threat to a hypothetical deep state. And so they're going to want to put somebody like that out there. Now, if I was, and I'm not, and I don't have any proof or evidence that any of this is true, but hypothetically speaking, if I wanted to destroy that ascension event, one of the ways I would do it is I would create a false patsy. I would find somebody and I would give them conflated information. I would find somebody who was religious and had a strong religious bent. And I would tell them the Antichrist is coming and here's how it's going to come. But one of the things that's interesting about Project Bluebeam is that he talks about the end goal is to create for the deep state. He believed that there would be centralized digital currency. Now we know for a fact that the world is seeking to create digital currencies, centralized government-controlled digital currencies. Now that, if you need to be in a world where there's a digital currency, it means that you don't want to be in a world where there's no need for money, where everything is free. Energy is free, food, there's no such thing as borders or any of that nonsense. Human beings have complete freedom to do and live wherever they want, and you don't have to have a job. The universe provides. You have access to free energy technology, so there's no need to pay a government or an electric company or petroleum companies that make quadrillions of dollars. By the way, nobody talks about that. People talk about big pharma and deep state and the bankers, but they don't talk about the petroleum companies that make quadrillions of dollars. That's where all of the money is. If there is one chunk that has the most power, it is the petroleum companies. The people who are going to lose out the most in this ascension are going to be the petroleum companies, because you're not going to need to go get coal for energy. You're not going to need to get natural gas. You're not going to need to get petroleum for planes, for ships, for trains, for cars. You're not going to need it. That is the hugest one. If there is a deep state, I can guarantee you, and I don't have any evidence that there is, but if there is one, I can guarantee you that the most powerful coalition will be the people who own the petroleum interests. People don't talk about that enough. But what's interesting is that Project Bluebeam is trying to talk you out of what would be the essential aspect of an ascension event. And that is the complete, total elimination of money. That's what would come of it. There would be no need for money. And Project Bluebeam is actually trying to convince you in a roundabout way that you need to have digital currency. Although it says that's what the Antichrist is going to do. But remember, if there really were, and of course this is purely hypothetical, if there were a deep state that wanted to do all that, they would want, without a doubt, they would want a digital centralized currency. And so if we want people to want the digital currency, then what we have to do is we have to create a patsy who has partial truth and partial falsehood. And we have to convince him that digital currency is bad, because then he will attract the most extreme people in society to say that's bad. And then all we have to do is say, but look, this other thing never happened. There wasn't some archaeological thing. That never happened. All we have to do is just find the 3 or 4 things about it that didn't happen and that were false. And then we can say, see, you do want digital currency because that nutbag, that French-Canadian nutbag told you not to have it. No, that's what you do want. Does that make sense? So again, I believe this was a psyop. I believe that Serge was an unwitting psyop, and unfortunately they didn't want him to stay alive long enough. And I have no evidence for this. He apparently died of a heart attack. But in my hypothetical world, if I wanted to use him that way, I would get him to write his book, get out his theory, and then I would get rid of him as fast as possible. That's what I would do. But I find, again, this hologram thing very interesting. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. All right, so what else did I want to talk about? I think that was kind of it. I just wanted to talk about that. And I guess the reason I'm talking about it is because, as I said, I wasn't entirely clear on, still not entirely clear on what the meaning of that dream was that I had. And somebody could definitely have interpreted that as a confirmation of Project Bluebeam that I was intuiting. But the main thing that I find interesting, and that is also confusing for everybody, I think, as I've said, when I became aware of a lot of things that were going on with big pharma and big tech, I said I was wrong, because I was somebody who argued for the narrative, and I did not believe in any of the tinfoil hat crowd at all. I put them all in the same category as flat earth. I don't believe in flat earth, by the way, but I believe in pretty much everything else. And I made some videos and I said I was wrong. And I said I was wrong for the right reasons, and a lot of people are right for the wrong reasons. The reason I say that is, again, the confusing thing is that people's intuitions are picking up on the truth. And the truth has always been that everybody knows the truth on an unconscious level. And so when your unconscious is telling you that something isn't right, you're being lied to, you're being played, but you don't know how. It creates a lot of trauma. And then all that has to happen is that David Icke has to come along and say, yeah, there are these evil reptilian alien beings who are beaming thoughts into your head from the rings of Saturn. They want to eat your soul, and you go, that must be it, because that's exactly what it feels like. And then, of course, people aren't operating with their critical thinking skills because they probably don't have them. And so it tends to be that the least rational people who have the most emotional and mental and psychological disorders are also the ones who are more open to their unconscious, uncomfortable intuitions. And so they're the first to come out and start talking about all this stuff and conflating things and misunderstanding things, or if I'm right and this Serge Monast was a deep state plant of misinformation, then they're going to latch on to everything because he's saying, 75% of what he's saying is exactly what they believe to be true. And there's a ton of evidence that proves that there could be some holographic event of either fake aliens or a fake God. And that's all you need. So they're right for the wrong reasons because they don't have enough ability to have critical thinking. I was wrong for the right reasons because I was able to find out the things that weren't rational, that weren't possible, and to discount them. And like a good rational person, if you can find one thing wrong with it, you have to throw the whole thing out. And so I did. And the fact that most of them were very, a lot of them are really emotionally imbalanced. Those aren't people you want to find truth out from. But it's sort of like being in a town where all of the kids, all the children, because they haven't been indoctrinated into something, the children know something's wrong and they're flipping out. But you go, oh, those crazy kids, they're just kids, they don't know any better. And that works completely into the hands of if there are any evil people behind the scenes trying to get things done. So I'm just saying this is a challenging time. It causes a lot of confusion and a lot of cognitive dissonance. And I won't lie to you, I'm having some confusion and cognitive dissonance here. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a first-hand experience of what exactly this ascension event is going to be. There are other people who have different skills that I do that have seen it, and I tend to trust those people. And the people who have seen it, when I go into meditation, I'm not shown that. I'm shown and given other things. But the people who are able to go and see the experience, the ones that makes the most sense to me is that there's going to be something in the sky. It's not going to be a god. For all I know, maybe Serge Monast, maybe he was right, and maybe there will be a holographic fake Jesus that'll come in. I don't know. But at least now I know to go, if I see Jesus in the clouds, I'll go, well, I don't know that that's true. And just because I'm getting a telepathic message doesn't mean that that's coming from the truth. But I believe that there will be something that will be something everybody will be able to feel is true. If it's going to happen. If it's not, then we're back to ground zero again. Anyway, so you can get. I don't have an answer for any of it, but I do think that we should continue to have critical thinking skills And I think that our assumption should be, remember, everything is based on assumption. If you have an accurate assumption, you will know the truth. If you have an emotional agenda, an emotional agenda about anything, and you're attached to that belief, you can be manipulated. You can be manipulated and lied to. And you run the risk of coming to a false conclusion. So when I have these spiritual experiences that my experiences are coming directly from higher dimensional beings, I take all of it at face value and I accept everything that's being given to me. I don't try and figure it out, but then I don't become emotionally attached. I don't need for any of it to be true or any of it to be false. And I recommend that you have that as well. Follow the energy. Follow the love. I'm going to give you an example of something. I don't know the person's name, and even if I did, I wouldn't say it. It was a woman in a wheelchair. And she was supposedly speaking out against the deep state in favor of ETs. This woman was in a wheelchair, and she had a definite vibe that came across as being very toxic. My feeling was that this woman was very psychologically damaged and in a lot of pain. I believe she was telling the truth as she knew it, but there was just bad vibes coming off of everything she was doing and saying. And she was supposedly speaking on behalf of ETs. She then went and talked about some guy, some ex-military guy. Okay, there's red flag number one. An ex-military guy who had some bunker in the side of a mountain, red flag number two, where she could go into this and communicate with aliens. Red flag number three. Red flag number four is she said that these aliens, you couldn't tell if they were real or if they were manufactured, and that they were somewhere between being a real being and an android. That's biggest red flag. This is what happens when you are not a critical thinker. You are easily able to be manipulated by, if there is such a thing as fake aliens. That would be the definition of it. But she, because of her psychological damage, her psychological imbalance, and because of her victim mentality, because what she was trying to portray is those evil, the evil deep state is coming to get us. I've talked to the aliens and she was just so full of toxicity. And then talking about her ex-military whistleblower friend who had some, big thing in the side of a mountain where half robot, half, real aliens come and interact with her. She doesn't have the ability to go, something's not right here. And that's because she has an emotional agenda. So all they have to do is, for instance, go to her and talk about evil aliens fighting the good aliens. Now they got her. And I'm going to introduce you to the good ones. Come into my bunker. By the way, I used to be in the military, but I'm not anymore. That's how I know the truth. And I'm going to give you the truth. And all that somebody has to do is conflate the truth, give enough victim mentality for her emotional agenda to latch onto. And now she's a patsy for the deep state, giving conflicting false truths, which either the average person is going to go, there's something wrong with her, I'm going to not listen to any of it, or all the crazies are going to get connected to her, in which case then the mainstream media can point at them and look at these crazy people. Look at all the crazy stuff they're talking about. That's obviously not true. And then you're stuck in the middle. You have half-truths and half-false. You're full of confusion. You're full of shame because how dare you believe anything that goes against the narrative, and how dare you, follow your intuition. And then they can they can convince you to just stay in your little cubicle and let us, come in and tell you, oh, evil alien whales are attacking. You now have to give up all of your freedom. All right, so that's it for me, guys, today. I probably beat this to death, and I think you get the truth of it. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I am expecting big changes this month and perhaps next month as well. And it'll be interesting to see if this event is going to happen or not. Now, again, I don't take any questions from people unless you are subscribed to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge and I know who you are. And I do see here a question, 90-Day Warrior. Should we practice both Phase 1 and Phase 3 night practices or replace the Phase 1 night with Phase 3? The idea is to go from Phase 1 to Phase 2 to Phase 3. So do it in order. For those of you who don't know what he's asking about, if you go here to thunderwizard.com, I give you the most powerful energy practice in history, and it combines the three most powerful energy practices in existence, which is Qi, which is life force energy, Qigong, the lightning energy of the heart, which to my knowledge was only taught by one group of people, which is the Maoshan Taoists, which is the electric energy that surrounds the heart and protects the soul, turns it outward, and it turns you into literally sort of like a laser beam. You can destroy negativity with your own energy. And then the third is Kundalini, which is the fifth dimensional consciousness energy, which rises up through the spinal column and the chakras. I put all that together into one practice. You're not going to find it anywhere else. And it's here at thunderwizard.com. You subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. Give it a try. There's 3 phases and a bunch of other stuff in there as well, a bunch of meditations. And I recommend, if you're serious about being able to, number one, be a critical thinker, work through all of your issues, but also have the energy to shift yourself up. Begin the shift to 5D now. I recommend that you go there and do that. Now, for those of you that don't want, for whatever reason, you're 10 years old and you live with your parents, or you've got some kind of burr up your saddle about anybody charging money for anything, God forbid, well, then the good news is there's plenty of free stuff on the channel. You can go to the playlists on my YouTube channel. Some guy left some really snide remark about, how many thousands of dollars. And the sad part is that easily 90% of all of the practices I give, including the Awakening the Immortals, including the Hul breath, the Huar breath, the Qigong, the Heaven-Earth meditation. And if you don't have the ability to get up off your rear end and go look for those things on the playlist, nobody to blame but yourself. These people aren't even looking at the obvious. And that's sad for me, because they're just talking themselves out of the most powerful free energy practices you can find anywhere. The stuff I give out for free, you're not going to find anywhere. Good luck. Go look for them. See if you can find them. If you can, good for you. I recommend everybody do some kind of practice. The one thing that will give you the ability to shift through your agendas, your misunderstandings about things, your cognitive dissonance, most importantly, your resistance, which we all have, the basic human resistance we have to shift out of 3D. You're not going to be able to take care of that if you don't do something. There must be some meditative energy practice that you must be doing, otherwise it's very unlikely you'll be able to shift on your own. So you can go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe if you want the most powerful stuff, and I teach you from A to Z what to do. And this is what he's asking about. The answer to his question is start with Phase 1, then go to Phase 2, then go to Phase 3. I've got my books, Michael William Denny, including Interdimensional Revolution, where I prove to you that alien abductions aren't done by extraterrestrials, but in fact are done by humans. If you want to see how I prove that, go get that book. And of course, at courses.thunderwizard.com, all of my other stuff that Vedic astrology certifications and readings and rune certifications and all kinds of other stuff. And the most important book is The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, which I believe everybody in 5D will intuitively do. So get a head start on that. All right, now he's reminded me to do, keep the lights on, so there you go. All right, so I hope I answered your question there. I believe I did. I don't see anything else, so I guess we're done for today. Thank you, my friends. I love you, and we live in extremely interesting times. And, I'll be back again perhaps tomorrow if the flash doesn't come and if the Project Bluebeam doesn't... Oh, by the way, another thing about Project Bluebeam is that there was supposed to be a fake rapture where that somehow the evil Antichrist deep state was going to... I don't know if they were going to really beam people off the planet or just fry them and make it seem like they'd been taken off, planet in a fake rapture. I don't know. That was another interesting one. But if the fake rapture and or the real rapture doesn't come, and if the solar flash doesn't come, I will see you guys all very soon. So take care.